we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. My name is Audrey Savage and I'm an International Communications Officer here at Lund University. And I'm going to be moderating our panel of current students today who are all students studying subjects in the sciences. So first, I want to make a few little housekeeping announcements. So as I mentioned before, you can post questions in the Q&A section at the bottom, and you can also upvote questions. So if someone has the same question that you do, you can put a little thumbs up and that will send that question up to the top of the list. So we'll try and get your questions answered today. We also have a few questions of our own to ask, but of course, what we're here for really is to make sure that you can ask any questions you have. Good note as well that we will not be answering any application related questions today, anything about how to apply or the application requirements and things. If you have questions about that, please join our other sessions that we offer. We have a lot of different webinars and things happening throughout the semester that will be focused just on answering those questions about how to apply. But since we have our current students with us here today, we want to make sure we use their time wisely and focus on questions that they can actually answer. And without further ado, I think we'll introduce our student panel. So if you guys would like to introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you study and who you are. Ina, how about you start?
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Anna. I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina and I'm studying mathematics at Lund University.
Great, Maria Esther?
Hi everyone, so my name is Esther. I'm Spanish Peruvian and I'm doing the Bachelor in Physics at Lund University.
Wonderful. Livius?
Hello everyone, my name is Livius and I'm doing my master's in plant science, which is part of the biology at Lund University, and I'm in my second year at the moment.
Jana?
Hi everyone, I'm Jana. I'm from Germany and I just started my master's in Aquatic Ecology, which is also one of the biology specializations.
Wonderful. So as you can see, we have a few students here from different departments and 2 from masters and bachelors. We are representing Europe very well here today, but I also want to make a note that we do have students from over 130 countries at Lund. So no matter where you are in the world, you are of course always welcome. And we have around, I believe, at least 10 to 15 programs in the sciences. So you can always take a look at those online as well and see what program might interest you. But to start us off, why don't we hear from you guys about what your favorite thing is studying science at Lund or studying your program in particular? I think that's a great place to start. So Livius, would you like to start us off?
Yes, so for me, the nicest thing is that there's a lot of interesting topics and interesting programs. So for me, plant science was actually quite hard to find at many universities that I looked for. And even here, I'm only one of 4. I'm one of the smallest, but there's always, a chance to really specialize in what you like. And there's always like good resources at university and good teachers, researchers that can contribute to your learning. And yeah, I would say it's a very good balance between international and Swedish students and resources and opportunities.
Great, thanks. Jana, how about you?
Yeah, I can go along with what Livia said for sure. And also I love the hands-on experience you get. So I've only been studying here for a month now, but I've already been on 4 or 5 excursions and I've learned so much in these few weeks. And the professors are really, really nice that I had for now. And I'm sure the others are very nice as well. But there's no hierarchy, so everybody's on first name basis, which is, it makes a very nice studying atmosphere.
Wonderful. Maria Esther?
So I would agree as well with what they say about like teachers and how very international the university is, like especially with professors. You can really see they're ready to help you and really, really passionate about the subject they're teaching. And then probably about physics, it's just like that balance that exists between the theoretical and the practical work, which I really love as well. And it's just so very interesting.
Amazing. Anna, we'll round up with you.
Yeah, I agree with what was said already. So I'm not going to repeat that, but yeah, for sure, teaching is definitely student-oriented, and I was positively surprised to see how great interactions we have with our professors that are very supportive and open-minded. And I'm glad that I've chosen this mathematics program because even though we focus so much on the theoretical part, we make sure to applied to some practical projects.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's something that I know. Oh, Livius, yeah.
If I can add one thing, sorry, is
Absolutely.
what Jana said about there's no hierarchy. I think especially in our field in science, I think it's so important because ideas don't necessarily, the best scientific ideas don't always come from the lecturers. So it's important that when you do a scientific degree, that everybody's voice is equal, because we are training to be scientists. So it's training to be in a real world scenario. And definitely with the field trips, I think it's a very good balance between what you do in class and what the field trips are for. They're made to re-encourage what you've learned in class and to test real life scenarios, which don't always apply in in my other degrees, in my other experiences. Because field trips sometimes are just, so we can have a field trip, but here I feel like they have a real purpose behind it.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. Actually, could you tell us a little more about the field research opportunities and sort of in general, kind of what you work with in the sort of hands-on side of your program?
So that was actually my first module here was the soil and plant ecology. And for that, it really broke down science to its core. So we first learned ideas published in literature. Then we were going on field trips, for example, to analyze soil samples and to work in laboratories in order to extract our own data, which we then analyzed in a similar fashion and tested it. And then furthermore, we compared it to other research in the field to see exactly the scientific process behind learning and contributing to the larger world of science. But a lot of it actually is it's going to the field in order to collect data effectively, knowing how to, for example, stratify, or knowing where to collect it from, how to collect it, and how to make your data strong and just really support the research that you are doing behind. And there are a lot of places in the region that we are in where you can do a lot of research, and it's easily accessible, and the facilities at the universities are very good for really looking into the data that you're collecting.
Absolutely. That sounds great. I know that's something that, of course, all the sciences that do sort of field research really take advantage of our region here in Skåne, that we have a very rich region for wildlife, both in the biology sector and geology as well. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share about your hands-on project or the sort of research that you're getting to do in your program?
Yeah, I can say a few words. So first, in our class that I'm taking now, it's limnology and marine ecology. And first we learn about all the species that you could find in a lake or in marine environments. And then we actually went out to get our water samples on our own and test them for all the parameters that we were looking at before. And this is the main purpose for us, to actually see in practical what we have learned in theory, and also to learn how to use the instruments for sampling, which is really important, to know your way around. And then, for example, we compared lakes to the marine environment. So we went to both environments, and then we also did samples on the East Coast and then compared them to the West Coast. So we were even gone for more days than one. So we got to try a lot of sampling techniques like snorkeling and going out in waders and being on the boat. So you get a good introduction.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great experience, especially in just the first month. So I'm sure there's lots to come. Great.
Yeah, I think they wanted to use the good weather.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wonderful. Maria Esther, you're studying physics. Have you been doing much work in the laboratories or getting to explore some more hands-on with?
All of the physics courses involve like learning the theoretical side of it, and then just like going to the laboratory to actually just like delve deeper into what you're doing and see what's actually happening. And then obviously you have to write like lab reports and everything, which really help you understand what you're doing.
Great. And Anna, you mentioned that you also work with theoretical, but then apply that to some real world problems. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'm studying pure mathematics, so we definitely focus on more theoretical part and different theorems and proofs, and also seeing different methods and then applying that to solve different kind of projects, and they're mostly programming projects where we are using math and involving that into programming. We focus on lots of group projects, so it's great to kind of communicate using mathematical language with your classmates.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. We have a great question here from the audience already about what are the main differences you experience in how students work together and act socially towards each other here in Sweden compared to your home country. So, and I guess that's also interesting to talk about just in general how the education experience has been compared to your home country. So perhaps, Jana, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So here you do a lot of group work, which I generally experienced, I think, which is nice because you also get to know the other students, and if you have a problem, you're not alone. And especially in the master's program, I think you're never really that many people in a course. So by a month, you know pretty much everyone, which is very, very nice because you can start having a network and communicating with everyone. And it's also a way to start having friendships, and that's really nice.
Great. Livius, how about you?
I would say, so I didn't say what I actually studied before, but in the UK, I did my bachelor's in the UK, and I would say the lack of hierarchy really impacts even further down, even down to the student level. So you are actually given more responsibility as a student here, at least at the master's level. I don't know about bachelor's. But you have more responsibility in order to plan your research, in order to come up with ideas, and that's really reinforced in terms of group work. So with my friends and within the biology department, at least, I feel like we are very tight together. And even if you don't know the person, you automatically feel like they are your friend because of the tight-knit community within biology. And you can always go to them, ask questions, work together in teams. So I would say it's nice that it's relaxed. It doesn't feel like you are burdening them or asking anybody questions. And if they cannot answer you, they really redirect you to someone that knows more about the topic. But yeah, I would say it's a very nice attitude that they have.
Wonderful. Maria, Esther, and Anna, I know you're both studying bachelor's degrees, so it's hard probably to compare it to what it would have been like to study that in your home country. But is there anything that you know of just from sort of, I guess, growing up, knowing what it would have been like if you'd stayed home to do a bachelor's that you think is quite different about Lund?
I mean, probably it's the group work, which like they put a lot of emphasis here in Lund. And I think it's really good because like you start developing your cooperation skills, your communications, and like you always know there's someone there to help you. But I really can't say much regarding that.
Makes sense. And anything to add?
Yeah, actually, I have studied the 1 year of bachelor's in my home country. Oh. And when I came to Lund, I was definitely surprised about the group work and how teaching is student oriented. They encourage us to ask questions, to give feedback on anything, to just ask for anything. Teachers and assistants are very helpful. And comparing to my home country, it's about, I don't know, my home country relationships are a bit stiff. Hierarchies definitely come into play. So in Sweden, you just address everyone by their first name, and it's, I don't know, relationship is much different. It's kind of friendly oriented.
Absolutely. I know that's something we get a lot of questions about, and students are always surprised, not just in science, but across the board at Lund University and in Sweden in general, is that very informal relationship with professors. You call professors by first name. It's quite normal to have fika, which is sort of a little coffee and pastry break in Sweden that's very popular with your professors, and have that very informal relationship. Definitely.
It really saves time, you know, instead of going, oh, hello, professor, you know, and really, if you have a question, you go, it's very direct and it's answered. And one thing I want to mention also is in terms of the research groups within biology, they are very friendly. You always see the research groups divided and they always go for coffee breaks together. So even when they are not working and studying together, the relationship still persuades, you know, it's a real connection, I would say.
Amazing. I just want to mention for our audience now as well, I said in the beginning, but just to restate state, we are focusing just on student life questions here today. Of course, these are all current students, so we won't be answering any questions about how to apply to the university or GPAs, anything like that. So if you have those kind of questions, please join some of our other sessions, both in the future, or you can always email our office at the end of the session today. I'll post the link where you can contact us, but we will focus on those student questions for now. But I do have a question here for Emma about the physics bachelor's program. Someone's wondering what the syllabus is like for that. So I guess what sort of classes and I guess what progression does your program take? You're in the final year now, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it about physics or math?
Oh, physics. Sorry. So Maria, I'll direct that to you.
I'm currently doing my second year, but basically like you start first year doing introductory maths courses and like basic physics courses like mechanics, electromagnetism and all that. And then you start like to progress like more advanced maths, which is like the semester I'm doing right now, and then other compulsory physics courses. And I think it's at the beginning of the fourth semester that you have to choose like which area you want to specialize in, like theoretical physics and just general physics or astronomy or astrophysics. And finally, like we also have elective courses and the Bachelor thesis.
Great. I guess I don't want to make a blanket statement here, but I believe most of our science programs, you do have quite a lot of that flexibility to sort of specialize in your area of interest, if you all would agree with that, that you're not necessarily as locked into a specific area, but more given that kind of flexibility. Seeing a lot of nods there. And the reason I mix those two up is I'm looking at a second question just below it about math. So we also have a question now for Anna about if the math program is mainly lecture-based or program-based.
Oh, so for each course that I've taken so far, it consists of lectures and seminars. In lectures, we focus mostly on theoretical parts, going through different theorems and proofs, like I said, but on seminars, we solve homework problems and they encourage us to come up, solve our problems, our exercises on the blackboard. I think it's great that they focus on presenting in front of others. It doesn't have to be correct solution, but it's just like to discuss various topics and just to develop different kind of ideas. That's what I would say. So it involves both theoretical part and also solving different assignments.
Great. Thanks for answering. I have another question here where someone's asking specifically if there are a lot of students from Romania. They said they're a bit scared to move to Sweden because they're worried they won't find people with the same background. I'll actually answer from my experience that we have quite a lot of students from Romania every year. I studied at Lund as well a few years ago, and I had 2 or 3 friends actually from Romania just that I knew, but I know from working here now that we have quite a few students, so don't worry about that at all. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have students from over 130 countries at Lund, so no matter where you're from, it's pretty likely that you'll find at least a few people that are here as well. And then jumping in, we're getting quite a lot of questions now, which is great. So please keep them coming. Feel free to post. We have one here for Jana regarding aquatic ecology. This person is wondering what were the main limitations brought on by the pandemic and if they're still prevailing? More lectures on Zoom than in person, if the labs and field trips were compromised, what's the situation looking like? I think before I let you into that, Jana, I'll say a more basic statement that, of course, in the past year, we have been having a lot more hybrid and distance solutions that have been occurring. But from now until November 1st, we're in the process of transitioning all of our teaching back to sort of normal on campus at Lund. And so the hope is, of course, we can't predict the future, but assuming that things are continuing to go in a positive direction, hopefully by the time any of you are here next year, the pandemic will be part of the past and you won't have to worry about that so much. But Jana, I'll let you answer if the restrictions have still been kind of in place for your programs and how that's affected some of your labs and field trips.
Yeah, so since I've been only studying here for a month, I think I've merely been affected. So most of the lectures were online. But as I said, we had a lot of field trips and excursions, and the university took quite some effort. So we are 30 people in this course right now, and they, for example, they rented 6 mini buses for us to take to excursions. So we were within our groups when we took buses. Within the buses, we had to wear a mask, and then we kind of remained with our group. So we didn't mix so much. So they had a little, or they had a few safety measures, but we could do our excursions just as we should have done. So that was not a limitation at all. And when we also did the field trips that were for 4 days each, we also stayed within our group in our rooms, for example. But it was still a really nice experience because we all ate together, for example, or we all cooked together. And whenever there was a doubt that, oh, maybe someone is sick, you should do a test, of course. But yeah, in the lab, we had to wear a mask as well when we were in a really confined space, and in seminars we usually do. But as Audrey already said, the next course that starts in November is supposed to be all in person, and then I guess lectures will be on campus again as well. So yeah, very little effect actually.
Great. Hopefully most of the pandemic effect is behind us now once we get to November and forward. I have a question here about, again, the bachelor's in physics. Saying, can someone take courses from other areas? For example, even though I love physics, I would enjoy studying a bit of politics or philosophy. So Maria, Esther, I don't know if you've had anyone in your program who's taken courses in other areas, or if there's time for that.
I mean, you definitely can. You also get like a lot of flexibility in the degree. So you have like 30 credits you can take from like any of the departments at Lund University, and also from like other universities in Sweden. So I actually have that same problem. Like I love physics, but I also love literature. So during my time here, I'm also doing extra literature courses, and some of my classmates are doing the same thing. So it's perfectly normal.
That's wonderful. Again, at the risk of making too much of a blanket statement, I would say that's quite common for most of our programs, that you have a bit of an elective course that you can fill in and take courses in other places. The one thing to keep in mind is that you have to be qualified for those courses. So if there are any sort of entry requirements, you have to make sure you meet those. For example, sometimes we have students who want to take a business course, and maybe that business course requires some previous business courses or economics. So you just always have to check and make sure you can enter the course, but if so, usually you have the chance to do so.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I usually have the problem of trying to find a topic or like a course for me to do because there's not so many in plants, but actually here there are so many, and again, with different universities and with different departments that I actually struggle. So at the moment I'm doing a geography module, and next semester I'm doing a zoology module with a different university. So I would say, yeah, there are really a lot of choices.
Great. That sounds really fun to get connected that way.
Yeah.
Awesome. We have a question here that I think is a great question. I was going to bring this up if someone else didn't, so thanks, Martin. Does the university connect students with internships and employment opportunities? So what have been the options in your programs for career networking per se? Or are there internships or things like that in your programs? How about we start with Anna?
So I think there are many choices for students, but I think that you have more opportunities once you get towards the end of your program. I think when you equip yourself with enough knowledge, then you're able to properly apply it. For example, I'm working as a mentor for one compulsory course during the first semester of math studies. So I think that is a great way to kind of discuss mathematics with the other students, but it also helps me to practice and to kind of prepare for my career path or my further education. But definitely there are many internship programs and summer programs that one can take with different companies, but it's up to students to search for those, definitely.
Would anyone like to add on to that?
Yes, I would say, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but our study coordinator in biology, we get weekly emails about different opportunities of different companies that reach out to Lund universities to ask for students. So I actually did an internship with a company in Amsterdam at the beginning of this year through my study coordinator reaching out to potential students that are interested. So yeah, I would say there's a lot, well, at least for biology, there's a lot of reaching out for further opportunities. And most of my friends have also done internships abroad or in other places.
Wonderful. Thanks. So changing a little bit off from science here, but a little more to some student life questions. We have one question here at the top that's been upvoted twice, asking how hard was it to find accommodation? Accommodation is, of course, something that students quite often are worried about as they come to Lund. I'll also preface this one by saying that for accommodation, it depends a little bit on where you're from. So if you're applying as a non-EU student, you will be guaranteed accommodation through LU accommodation. So that makes things a little bit easier for you. If you are a EU student, as most of our panelists here today are, though, it can be a little more difficult, but usually if you search early, in our experience, things tend to work out. But how about you guys share some of your experience? How were you able to find your housing? Let's start with Jana. You did this quite recently since you're first year.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes it's frustrating because I guess we're all EU students. We don't have a housing guarantee. So there are some possibilities. There are different websites where you can look, like Facebook, Bopoolen. I'm sure there will be more webinars that will tell more about these websites. But yeah, I started looking early on, and I wrote to a lot of people who rented out, and I didn't get answers for most of them. But then eventually, after a month or a month and a half, something worked out pretty nicely, and now I'm very happy. So it's not impossible. I don't think it will keep you from studying and coming here.
Livius, I see some nods over there. Would you like to share your experience?
Yes, I would say it is quite difficult because Lund is a small town, and it's very historic and beautiful, so they kind of like restrict how many places there are. But I would say, yeah, if you just have patience, I think patience is quite important. I applied through EF so I participated in the lottery. And I looked, for a couple of days because I didn't have the greatest time. But yeah, I think if you have patience and if you keep trying, even after you've given up, I think there will be something. And some of my friends also live in other places, in Malmo, in Helsingborg. I have a friend that lives in Bjärred. So yeah, there are. If you don't find something in Lund, you will find something somewhere. The more patience you have, I would say, the higher chance you find something nice. But yeah, I would say, having lived in the UK and the awful student housing there, I would say that here, even if you do struggle, at least at the end, you will have a nice accommodation. I've not seen anybody that lives in an awful place. So there is that to look forward to.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Maria Esther?
Yeah, I can only basically say the same. But like, it can be hard at times, but it's not impossible. Like you have many options as well. So.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing that was your experience as well, but if you have anything to add.
Actually, I don't have an experience when it comes to accommodation. I have a family living in near Lund, so I kind of travel on a daily basis. But lots of my friends share like the same experience like others here. So eventually you will find some accommodation.
Absolutely. And we and our office reach out to all the admitted students and try and help you with finding some of those resources. So Livius mentioned EF Bostader, that is a housing organization here in Lund that offers quite a lot of student housing. For example, the Student Nations offer a lot of housing. So we try and direct students who don't have a housing guarantee to be able to find those resources. So don't worry about that. We'll be there to help as well. The next question we have is about if it's easy to connect with Swedish students, or do you mostly have international friends? I know this is also something people are often quite worried about, if you'll be able to meet people in the local community. Has anyone had experience with that you'd like to share?
I did. Actually, I'm a member of a track and field team. It's located near Lund, but it's mostly Swedes. We have international teammates, but they're all very welcoming and friendly, and our coach also understands and speaks English very well, so I think it's great to kind of meet other people as well, but they also tend to like teach me some Swedish words every day, so I think that's fun.
Amazing. And Livius, you mentioned earlier before we started this session that you've been involved in Student Nations and quite a lot of student activities. So have you found that you've made a lot of Swedish friends, international, or both?
I would say it really depends on your personality. I'm much more of a Southern European personality, so I'm more loud and outgoing. So I think I don't really have many Swedish friends. It's not, I try to, but as many of you know, like they're very quiet and shy. So I would say that if you are more quiet and shy, you have a higher likelihood. But no, most of my friends are international, and I do have some loose Swedish friends. I am obviously willing to make some more in the future. I think speaking Swedish is a big barrier to that because they want to speak Swedish in their group of friends, you know, so I think that kind of hinders it. But no, they are lovely. They're just a bit quiet. So you have to, you know, if you come from a place where people speak a bit more loudly like I am, you have to accommodate for that.
Absolutely. Maria Esther?
Yeah, the same thing happens to me, and I probably have like most international friends here. But like with my experience with Swedish people, it has just been great. Like they're really friendly, they're kind, they're always ready to help, and even though like they're not known for like smiling sometimes, like they're always gonna have a smile if you need it. So
Great. And that makes me wonder also about your programs, kind of coming back to that. How international has your class cohort been? Is it mostly international students, mostly Swedes, or a bit of a mix? Jana, how about you?
I'd say my course is a really good mix. Although in my course, we are not only the master students, we also have bachelor students, Erasmus students. So it's really mixed, and that's nice. And I'd say we are maybe 2/3 international students and 1/3 Swedish students. And during the field trips, I observed that the Swedish students can also be very loud and outgoing. So I think they cover also the whole range.
Absolutely. Anna, how about you in the math program? Are you mostly Swedes, mostly international, or a bit of both?
So even though mathematics program for bachelors is given in English as well, so there are many international students, but there are also Swedes that are taking my studying mathematics, but in English. So I would say there are both Swedish and international students, but mostly internationals.
Livius?
Yeah, I would agree with Jana. I think in biology usually it's 2/3 international. But yeah, it's a good balance. I mean, you don't really notice once you're here which one's Swedish, which one's international. You know, I think it's more before you come here, you're kind of wondering. But yeah, I would say it's surprisingly international. You know, I assume that most of it would be Swedes because we are in Sweden. But I think it's the English aspect of it that, or maybe just the science. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's mostly internationals.
Absolutely. And I saw some nods there, Maria Esther. I'm guessing, is it around the same for your program, 2/3 international, 1/3 Swedish?
it's a program in English, so it's basically the same.
Absolutely. All right, we have some more questions here about some more student life things, about how much free time do you have as well to get involved in other activities. So perhaps it'd be good to share a little bit about what is your class schedule like? Are you in class most of the day, or do you have a bit more free time? How's your experience been with that? And how about we start with you?
So for me, it's like usually I have 2 hours long lectures and then 2 hours long seminars. So it's around 4 hours per day that I have to like attend. But most of the day, it's like up to me to decide if I want to stay on campus to study with my friends or if I want to go home and study by myself. It's basically up to me to organize my day if I want to do something outside of my studies. And I think it's very flexible. And if you organize your time very well, then you have lots of free time.
I'm seeing a lot of nods. So I guess instead of going around to everyone, I'll just say, is that the same for most of your programs? Or if anybody is experiencing something different, give a shout.
It's like completely flexible for me, as I usually have class from 9 to 4 p.m. So, but some of these lectures, so when they're still on Zoom, they are being recorded, so you could rewatch them later. But yeah, that's usually for studying purposes, or if you cannot make it. But after that, or if you have to go to the lab, it's compulsory, so you have to go. So that's not super flexible, I'd say, since it's practical. But after 4 o'clock, you're usually free to do whatever you like. So sports, nations, whatever.
Absolutely. And that's actually the next question that the student asks is, what do you do in your free time? And are there programs like sports offered by the university? I know, Anna, you already mentioned that you participate in track and field and sports. And we have a few others who are participating in different activities in your free time, but maybe Livius, if you'd like to start, what do you get up to in your spare time after class?
So just in terms of sports or in terms of anything?
Anything, I suppose.
Okay, so I'm actually taking a bit too much on at the moment, but I'm doing a SFI, which is Swedish for Immigrants lessons on Mondays and Thursdays. So there's different kind of programs that you can do for learning Swedish. I'm also part of the Accommodation, which is the university orchestra, and that's on Wednesdays most of the time. There's also a choir if you would rather be part of that. I do swimming. There are a lot of sports places in a lot of gyms and swimming halls in Lund, and I would say Swedes are very sporty, so you're definitely kind of like encouraged to do that here, to be sporty and to be healthy. And if you, for example, in Delphi, it's a very good resources. And it's very nice to, after a day of work, to kind of wind down and do some exercise. But yeah, I would say there's a lot of opportunities. Honestly, I also volunteer sometimes with my nation. I cook for them, or sometimes sell things or let people in. And that's also, you can work with your nation, and it's very nice because you get to meet other students, you get to socialize. But yeah, you definitely won't run out of things to do here.
And to answer the sport part of that question, there aren't sports necessarily sport teams for the university the way that there are in other countries, but we have a lot of clubs and organizations around sports that are student run. So, you mentioned already you're participating in the track and field sport club. We also have a very vibrant student life centered around something called the Student Nations, which I know is something that is quite unique to Sweden. These are essentially really, really large student clubs that put on everything from board game nights, pubs, clubs. They cook dinners and lunches, and they also put on their own sports activities, some of them, and different lectures and things to take part of. So that's something that also is quite active to get involved in. I know, Jana, you mentioned you've already joined a nation, and even in the first month. And right now, the past year or so, the nations have not been as active, unfortunately, because of social distancing. So everything's been online, but hopefully that will get back to the way it normally is quite soon. We have another question here about, is it hard to get a part-time job or to subsidize your living costs? This is also quite a common question we get. Just to also share our perspective, it is quite difficult to find a part-time job in Lund, specifically if you don't speak Swedish, just because there are so many students and everyone, of course, would like to have a part-time job, and things that are normal jobs for students like cafes or working in restaurants, of course, usually go to students who are speaking Swedish. So we always recommend that you don't come to Lund expecting that you'll be able to find a part-time job in order to finance your time here. Just consider it as kind of a bonus if you are able to find one. It is possible, they do exist, but it's not as typical as it is in other countries. I don't know, I guess if any of you have an experience with part-time jobs, or have most of you just been studying while you're here?
I do actually have a part-time job at the moment, but it's yeah, it was very difficult to find one. I've been doing it all summer, and many of them don't even reply back. And I think it's partially because of that, because I only apply as an English speaker. But I actually managed to find a job with university orchestra. With like, I sell tickets and organize venues for events. So I think there are some, but I don't know many people that do have part-time jobs. So even if there are Swedish speakers, there aren't that many.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not something that we recommend counting on, but of course, if you're persistent, it is possible to find. Next, we have a question about what students typically pursue after their studies. Of course, all of our students here are still in the middle of studies, so a little difficult to say. I suppose from our perspective in the recruitment office, I can say the student is specifically wondering if people do PhDs in the US. Of course, some people do. A lot, especially of those who graduate from the sciences, go on to do PhDs all over the world, including still here in Sweden. But perhaps that's an interesting question to ask, is what do you guys plan to pursue after you finish your studies? I know some of you have just started more than others, but if there's something that you're hoping to pursue, either a PhD or otherwise. Maria, Esther, would you like to start?
Well, I'm hoping after my bachelor's to do a master's in physics as well, and then go on to a PhD so I can actually like do research in the future. It's like my dream.
Absolutely. Anna?
So my plan is to apply for a master's program, and then hopefully maybe PhD, or to seek job in industrial area or government companies or private companies that seek mathematical skills.
Absolutely. That's a great ambition. Jana, I know you've just started with your master's, but
Yeah, I'm still recovering from my bachelor's thesis, but yeah, I think if I find a really good research group with an interesting topic, I would like to pursue a PhD. If, however, that does not happen, and I find a job that I really like to do, for example, in a national park or monitoring of marine environments, I think I don't have to have a PhD. Yeah, I'll see what happens, I guess.
absolutely. And Livius?
Yes, I would. I'm currently looking for PhD positions, either at Lund University or in Germany. But yeah.
Great. We have another question here again about connections with internships and employment opportunities, but this time at the university level. I think I'll just briefly state that we do have a career and alumni office who try and put on different activities and career fairs to connect students. In most programs that have internships, as Livius and others already mentioned, sometimes the program coordinators are able to connect you, and sometimes it's a little bit more up to you, but there are resources out there, especially for career and networking from the university. And we have another question about aquatic ecology, though I think this might be a little far ahead of you, Jana. So they're asking about what are the dynamics of the thesis. I know that's next year, but I don't know if they've talked to you at all yet about if you're able to sort of select anything for your thesis or how that works for picking your thesis. And as a sub question, the student also is wondering if there's any professors working in bioremediation at the biology department. So I don't know if that's something you or Livius know, but otherwise I would say, Pedro, this is a great question to direct to the department itself, and they should be able to let you know if there's any professors working in that. But Jana, have you talked yet about the thesis?
Yeah, actually, I've been in the program for a week, and then we had a speaker from Helsingborg who talked about her PhD thesis or her PhD project, and she was looking for master's students who would like to have a thesis in that field. So we get input from our professors. So yeah, you can come up with something on your own if you really have something specific you would like to do, but it's not, you can't be sure that it's going to work out because you have to have a supervisor. And if you're not working within a research group, you can ask certain professors to be your supervisor, but then you don't get as much help. So yeah, I guess best scenario is to work within a research group. And I think now Thursdays in the biology department, we have, or at least in aquatic ecology, sorry, we have seminars in which different research groups kind of introduce themselves or talk about the updates in their work. And that's how you can connect, I guess, as well. And then you can also talk to your professors about, the possibilities of what you can do. And we are certainly introduced to starting to think about our thesis already, although I don't know yet what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. And that ties in really well to another question we have here about the research opportunities and if it's possible to join research groups. So I guess we've answered that in one, but would anyone else in general like to share about the research opportunities you have in your program, both within class or I suppose outside of class, to connect with perhaps other researchers in the department or otherwise?
I would say most research groups have really looking for students to support and to help them. They also have, as Jana said, a lot of thesis opportunities in order to, again, work with the research groups in order to reach, the common goal that they have. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of, and they are very welcoming. They are, they're kind of like, come join us. Like it's a very easy thing to partake in.
Great. Maria, Esther, and Anna, I'm wondering if your programs talk to you much about preparing to go on to the next step for a master's, which is what you both said you're interested in doing. Is that something that you feel they prepare you well for taking that next step forward?
Well, I would say when it comes to math, we're kind of throughout these 3 years, we are picking up courses we are interested in and kind of creating a path that will serve us for a bachelor's thesis that we will do during the last semester of our studies. I think that I've read somewhere that some companies offer you positions to work on your bachelor's thesis together with them. But of course, university should be notified about that. I think when it comes to my thesis, I will work it as a part of university. So I don't really have much information about doing it as a part of research kind of with the companies.
Great. Maria, Esther, how about you?
Well, I really can't say much about this because being in like second year still, this is like, I've just done introductory courses into the degree, so they haven't really spoken about research or anything yet.
I'm sure it's coming down the line. Great. We have a question here that I think relates into another question we had posted in the registrations about safety in Lund, and if anyone has ever had any experiences of racism or any kind of discrimination. Would you say that Lund is a pretty safe place, or that you've ever experienced any negative experiences like that? I suppose, Livius, we can start with you.
No, I would say Lund is by far the most safe place I've ever lived in, and I've been to a lot of places. It is very welcoming, and it kind of ties in. Swedes have a nice attitude of they don't really, if it doesn't involve them, they don't really care. So they are, they are detached from the aspect of judging you and doing these negative things because they don't really mind. As long as you don't bother them, they don't really mind. So now, in terms of discrimination, especially if you're from a different country, it doesn't happen at all. Sexuality doesn't, I've not heard of anything like that. Racism, I don't think so. Even though there are not as many Black people as there were, for example, in the UK where I've lived. But no, I wouldn't say that there's any negative safe issues here, really.
Absolutely. And that's something I would say that the university works very hard to make sure that all of the students are feeling comfortable in the space where you're learning and able to participate and really feel like you belong here. So that's great to hear. And I think Lund as a city, I would echo that statement that is quite safe even by Swedish standards and statistically. I mean, we don't have a lot of any crime really in Lund. So it's somewhere you can feel quite safe. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add to that, or we'll move on to the next question since we only have about 10 minutes left here? Okay. And as a good reminder out to our audience, we have about 10 minutes left in our session. So we're going to try and answer these last 2 questions here and then a few questions we have prepared. But if you have any last questions, please feel free to post them now. We have a question here about taking elective classes in aquatic ecology. If you're not, let's see. If you're not eligible for them, and if there are other programs or courses related to aquatic ecology that you could take. I think we already answered this a little bit, Pedro, earlier in that there are opportunities to take elective classes in most of the programs. It depends on if you're eligible for them or not. And in terms of if there's some things that are more or less relatable, there are 5 different specializations within the biology program itself. So of course, I'm sure there's some options there. Like, for example, Jana, if you wanted to take one of Livius's plant science classes, I'm guessing that would be possible, and vice versa, and throughout other science departments. So it's really something that's good to talk to your program coordinator about once you get here and work out what electives might work well for you.
I want to add really quickly, sorry.
Yeah, of course.
What's really interesting here is that they mix bachelor's and master courses as well. So I can do bachelor courses and bachelors can do master courses, which is nice for modules, for example, which don't have many people. Like, for example, the plant courses don't have many. But if you increase, the bachelors and masters, there's a lot of mixing, which is a nice thing because you have the option to have more diversity in courses.
Yeah, I agree with that. If I may add, we in bachelor's program in mathematics are encouraged to take some courses at master's level. So I think it's great to kind of see what do you like and what are you interested in when it comes to mathematics.
Great. We have a question here. Someone's wondering about astrophysics and the astronomy courses within the physics department. Unfortunately, Stefan, we don't have any students here today with us from astrophysics or astronomy. I don't know if any of you have friends or have met anyone in those departments, but otherwise I would say it's good to contact the departments directly, and hopefully they can get you in touch with a student from those. From my perspective, I do know that they are also smaller, quite tight-knit departments, and they have state-of-the-art research facility as far as the astronomy labs and everything. So, but I think we won't be able to share much more than that today, unless, yeah. Okay, and then our final question here, are there any entrepreneurship opportunities around Lund? There are quite a few entrepreneurship centers and innovation labs. Venture Lab and Ideon come to mind. I don't know if any of you have any specific experience with any of that. Doesn't look like it, but that's also something, Martin, I would encourage you to check out online. If you search Lund, Venture Lab, or Ideon, you'll be able to learn a lot more about some of the entrepreneurship and sort of startup communities that work with entrepreneurship. We also have programs in that as well. But that looks like that was the last of our questions from the audience. So again, we have a few more minutes if anyone would like to post anything. But for now, I think I'd like to ask you guys in our final minutes here, if you could give a best piece of advice or sort of the number one thing you wish you had known before you had come to Lund or when you were choosing your program, what would you have said to yourself? Maria, Esther, why don't we start with you?
I mean, if we talk about like the academic side of things, I would have told myself to just like revise maths a little bit because I took a gap year before starting university, so my knowledge wasn't like the best at that time. But otherwise, I don't know, it's just like go ahead and be ready for everything because like really good things are gonna come your way.
Amazing. Jana?
I wish I had rubber boots when I came here because you go a lot into the water and I can't find them for a reasonable price here. So my hiking shoes work, but rubber boots are good for aquatic ecology.
This makes me laugh a little bit because one of my best friends when I was a student at Lund also studied aquatic ecology, and I remember going to the store with her looking for rubber boots in her first month. So I suppose I would second that. Livius?
I would say, yeah, be prepared for the weather if you come from a warmer place a little bit, because it is a bit windy and rainy. But I'm not sure actually. Just look around and make sure you inform yourself of all the different things that you can do here before, because once you're here, things really kick in, and I would say the courses really start really quick here. So you won't really have time to linger on unless you come a bit earlier. But yeah, I would say also try to spend a little bit of a summer here, because summers here are very beautiful and many people go abroad back home in the summer months. Yeah, and just try to find like a good group of friends that you can always count on when gloomy October kicks in, or November, and you want to go and have a coffee and play some games or whatever, because that really helps.
Awesome. And Anna?
Yeah, I would say don't stress over some things that you do not understand when it comes to courses and lectures. There will be some things that are hard at first, but you will get through it, and we are encouraged always to ask help. So I would say don't be afraid to seek help from your professors and your classmates. Yeah, and I would say just bring one waterproof jacket because it's raining a bit.
Definitely. And we have about 4 minutes left, so if anyone has a final question, feel free to post it. But otherwise, I suppose my last question for you guys is, if let's see, why do you think prospective students should choose your program? If you had to give your 30-second pitch for each of your programs to kind of bring it back to the beginning here of the individual programs, what would you say? How about Anna? We ended with you. We can start with you now.
Yeah, I mean, Lund is ranked as a top 100 universities in the world, so it's great for research environment, and there are many companies that seek people that have mathematical skills that can solve problems of mathematical type. So if you're looking to continue an education at master's level or PhD, or just seek an employment in government sector, I would say choose mathematics at Lund.
Amazing. Maria, Esther?
I mean, Lund University is really famous for its physics research, so it's like one of the best places to study, and as well, like the town of Lund is so beautiful, so it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. I think we can't let the session go by without mentioning Max 4 and ESS as well, that Lund has two of the largest research centers, mainly in physics in all of Sweden. So really great resource there as well for our physics department. Livius, why do you think students should choose plant science?
I think that Lund University really prepares you at least in the science department, really prepares you to be a scientist in the work ethics and the work-life balance. And yeah, great. There are great facilities, and there's always teachers that you can relate to, and you can they can support you to go on your journey, and it really encourages you to be independent. That's one of the big thing. It's independence. So you really do carve your own path, and they really guide you with a lot of choices that you can make.
Cool. And Jana, we'll round out with you.
Yeah, I completely agree with Livius, and also Lund University is one of the only universities, well, what I've seen, is that you don't have to choose between freshwater ecology and marine biology, but you can combine it. So in the end, when I go out of this master's, I will be prepared to work with freshwater environments as well as with marine environments. And I'm not as limited as if I had done only marine biology, which I think is very unique, and which was my also, I mean, yeah, Lund University is very famous, but I thought that this program is also very unique, and that's why I would always choose it again.
Yeah, I would say if you like something very specific, if you like something really specific, you do really have the choice of doing exactly what you want here.
Those are great points. And we are on our last minute here, so I just want to take a moment to say thank you to our student panel who have been with us here today. It's been great to hear about your experiences studying science and being an international student here at Lund. So thank you for joining us. And thank you to our audience who stuck around for an hour and gave us some great questions to answer. I want to mention again that we will have a lot of other sessions coming up throughout the rest of the next few months. So if you have more questions about how to apply, feel free to come back and join us. We'll have more sessions from program coordinators in the sciences later in November during our application week. And of course, you can always chat online to a lot of our current students, either on Instagram. Livius is our Instagram ambassador this week. So if you want to talk to him more, go over and follow our Instagram. Or you can also talk to our other 3 students here, Ina, Maria, Esther, and Jana on Unibuddy, where if you Google Lund University chat with students, you'll be able to find them there and chat anytime. So thank you everyone so much again for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.